Communications Group, GMA, is a focused, integrated media and entertainment company with over 20 years of experience and serving an average of 100 clients a year. GMA over the period has served clients across various industries from fast-moving consumer goods, banking, telecommunications, mining, real estate, hospitality and tourism, public sector, non-governmental organizations, and won many awards, including the coveted Golden World Awards from IPRA, PR Consultancy of the Year 2016 from the Institute of Public Relations, IPR, International Award for Excellence in Corporate Communication in 2019 by IPRA. GMA was the Innovative PR Agency of the Year 2018, with the most recent award being the Public Relations Consultancy of the Year 2020 at the Institute of Public Relations Ghana Excellence Awards and Presidential Bowl at Akosombo. GMA, as the foremost PR consultancy in Ghana, joined the world to celebrate the first ever World PR Day on July 16, 2021 with a myriad of activities. This year, 2022, GMA is again joining hands with public relations practitioners across the world to celebrate the second World PR Day. The day seeks to establish a unified global agenda to make the world understand and utilize the PR profession better. Public relations is an essential and necessary part of startups. PR will help put you on the radar of both investors and customers. But can everyone do PR? Or can PR be a side hustle? Public relations is more than just writing an email to journalists and granting interviews. Eko Kwanzi, assistant head of PR at GMA, tells the intriguing story of how he moved from journalism to public relations.
I did journalism for 6 years. I was traveling all over the place. Outside Ghana, even into the Americas and co. But I wanted a change. So then my big friend Michael called me that there's an opportunity at Global Media Alliance. So then I got to GMA. I said my name is Echo, and they were like, "Oh, okay, we're expecting you." I sat. There was an interview. It wasn't really an interview. I think at that time it was Mr. Ajiman, Sakwesi Ajiman. It's like, "Oh, okay, we've heard about you. You are a very good writer. We've heard a lot of things about you." So yeah. So then he just, in between the conversation, he decided to throw in a question. So if we are running a business launch for a product, what kind of media are we going to invite? Of course, I used to be a business and economic reporter, so I had an idea of the kind of media houses to invite for such a program. So then I answered that. He said, "Okay, cool, then that's it."
After completing their studies in communications, students decide to pursue other communication-related professions like advertising, marketing, or journalism. But Joel Sanko, PR account manager at GMA, public relations was his field of choice right from school.
So basically, I had 3 options to choose between PR advertising and then journalism. And I wasn't going for the latter 2. So I just ran to PR, not knowing I'll still meet the 2 in the course of the way. So I'd say yes, and then my lecturer, Dr. Bosman, also sets a good example for me, and that's why I chose PR. And it's not a decision I'm regretting. It's a decision I keep loving day by day. So yeah.
Thankfully, there are many pathways available at GMA for students who want to transition into PR professionals. Alberta James, a PR account manager at GMA, shares the story of how interning with a hotel here in Accra gave her a glimpse of what PR is and her desire to pursue it as a permanent career.
So, just like any normal SHS students who would want to go to school and choose schools just like their peers, I also had that idea of choosing a school, and I chose a school that was focused on PR and journalism. But I can say I was really introduced to PR when I interned with one of my bosses at a restaurant I worked in. So she gave me all the practical lessons I needed on PR. Not everything, but at least she introduced me to some things like press release writing and other stuff. So that's when I was introduced to PR.
The desire not to join the bandwagon of pursuing mundane courses in various universities that his mates were going for at the time was all Francis Tewia, a senior account manager, needed to enroll at the African University College of Communication, AUCC.
2005, it was a friend who mentioned AUCC, African University College of Communications at that time. At that time, it was AIJC at Multimedia House. So I just said, let me read about them. I read about them. I went to the school. I went to GIJ, and eventually I read the courses. I thought the courses were exciting. At that time, they were not the normal courses that friends were applying to go and do in Legon, UST, and the other universities. So I thought it was exciting, and also loved reading, and I was also very curious. So I decided to join, and I applied to AIJC at that time, now AUCC, and I had admission. And it has been an exciting journey so far. I don't look back and say that I shouldn't have applied to be on the communication study. It has been exciting, it has been great, and I always continue to learn.
At a communication university like Ghana Institute of Journalism, GIJ, students may choose from among 4 focus areas: advertising, journalism, marketing, and public relation programs, with similarities as well as differences. In both journalism and PR, professionals are constantly communicating with the public. They tell stories and interact with their audiences. It is what keeps the organization running. That is why, for people like Bridget Mensah, a PR manager at GMA, choosing between a career in PR or journalism was easy.
Growing up, I wanted to be a journalist because, I mostly speak my mind. So I love things that give you the opportunity to be yourself. However, when I went to GIJ, Ghana Institute of Journalism, to pursue a diploma in communication studies, when we started the courses, part of our course units included advertising, marketing, PR, and journalism. And I tend to enjoy the PR aspects more than I did the journalism. So when I had the opportunity to top up and do a degree, I majored in public relations. And that's how my PR journey started. I was fortunate to do my national service with Global Media Alliance Broadcasting Company, GMABC, where I have been from that time till date, and I haven't regretted it. PR is a very exciting field. You can do the things that you love. For example, I love advocacy, and so part of my PR strategies for our brands, YFM, Accra, Kumasi, Takrade, and ETV and Happy FM includes things that will raise awareness about issues that most people would overlook, like lupus in mothers, or fistula, obstetric fistula, or spina bifida and hydrocephalus, or even women empowerment, among others. I use that even though it's PR, I use my PR experience to bring those issues to the fore and get them addressed sometimes.
The goal of media buying is to identify and purchase ad space on channels that are relevant to the target audience at the optimal time for the least amount of money. A media buying manager at GMA, Mohammed Naktoma, who started his career in May 2011, explains how critical the tenets of trust, truth, and transparency are to the practice of PR.
Well, you are dealing with stakeholders, client stakeholders, media houses, and clients always expect you to pick the right channel for them to put out their communication. So you need to be truthful about the channels you select. If the channel is doing well, you need to be truthful. If the channel is not doing well, but because you probably think you could get something from the channel, you would want to push in that, no, you don't do that. If you do that, it may affect clients' communication and it may not get to the right audience. So you need to always be truthful about the channels you select. transparency. You need to also be truthful about your dealings with the stations, so that you don't go and pick a station just based on the fact that they may give you something. You don't do that. You always have to be transparent. If the station is giving you a discount on client's communication budget, you need to be clear with that. This is how much discount I'm getting. You don't hide anything from the client. You need to be transparent about that. And once there is like transparency over time, the client will begin to have trust in you, which is something that you learn to build as time goes on.
A lot of small to medium-scale businesses, SMEs, big corporations, as well as entrepreneurs have made avoidable mistakes due to a number of misconceptions and myths they have about the public relations profession and its importance to their businesses. As a consultancy that has served a multitude of clients from different industries over the years, GMA, as part of World PR Day commemoration, believes these myths and misconceptions still exist among companies. That is why they set out to clear up and disprove some of these common myths and misconceptions about PR. Public relations has been a key player in the marketing funnel since the early 20th century. PR is formally defined as a strategic communication process that builds mutually beneficial relationships between organizations and their publics. At its core, modern public relations still upholds each of these key factors and is instrumental in brand messaging and awareness. However, public relations has evolved throughout the digital age to incorporate a variety of tactics and techniques that weren't existing during the traditional era of PR. The rise of the digital age marked a decrease in traditional media and introduced a variety of widespread internet outlets like social media, newsletters, blogs, and more. This has led to misconceptions that PR is no longer relevant because traditional media is dead. Mohammed Natogma, a media buying manager with GMA, disagrees.
Times have evolved and now there's digital media, which obviously is a big thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean traditional media is dead. There's traditional media and there's still the new media where PR practitioners can also use to send their messages across. For PR practitioners, we need to adapt to the new changes, which is just an addition to the multitude of platforms that you can use.
PR can be hugely beneficial in times of crisis to help diffuse a harmful situation and sometimes to turn a negative situation into a positive one. But there are many other reasons why companies should consider taking on a PR consultancy. Parkwesi Forsen, head of PR at GMA, says it is true that when something negative happens, it does need to be managed with effective PR. But if you just follow this strategy, stakeholders will only hear about you during a crisis, and that Parkwesi says is not good enough.
PR is an everyday thing. You don't need PR only when there is negative news. We always say a good name is better than riches. And for that reason, in the everyday setting, we need to tell stories of where we came from, what we are doing right, in terms of our product, our history, our core values, our future aspirations, and every good thing about the organization that we are talking about or a product that we are profiling. And hence, I think that if organizations wait only when they have crisis to communicate, then they've missed the whole point. Because the kind of customers or consumers that we have are the people who want regular engagement. They want to understand our business. They want to follow us because we are doing something that is very cool, in quotes. And hence, when they only hear from us when there is crisis, they won't listen to us. So we advise that companies make a conscious effort to always communicate with their consumers, whether they are buying directly from them or not. Communicate with them. In doing that, you are achieving top-of-mind awareness, and that is good, even in sales and product recall.
A common misconception about PR is that PR is spin. Bridget Mensah, PR manager with GMA, says to spin is to communicate in a way that changes the way people are likely to perceive a story. As such, spin is intentionally misleading and can, in fact, give the opposite impression to what would naturally occur. Therefore, PR is not a spin.
Spin, of course, is not a new term, and particularly in politics. Politicians spin, or the press agents of politicians spin a lot. But for public relations professionals, we work with ethics, and we have tenets of public relation practice like truth, trust, and transparency. And these things do not go with spin. Spin is basically a polite way of describing deception, because if you arrange facts to tell a certain story, you rearrange what reality to suit your own agenda. That is not truth, and that is not what PR is about. PR professionals work with ethics. They have guidelines that guard their professions. It's true that you may have certain people who say they are PR people, but they engage in spinning stories. Because we have quack doctors, for example, does not mean that the medical profession is all about quacks or negligence and all that. In every profession, there are people that do not do the right things, and just as like every other profession like PR, we have people who would use spin and describe it as PR. But PR is built on truth, trust, and transparency.
You may have heard most business people say, if my product or service is good enough, I don't need publicity. It will sell itself. With so much competition out there, Alberta James, a PR manager, says publicity is essential to let prospective customers know your business exists and that every business needs publicity.
So, good products don't need publicity. I totally disagree with that. I mean, at a time when there is creativity and innovation everywhere, good products abound. And if you have the good products, there's a tendency that it will be in that saturation. So you need to do all you can to give the right publicity to your good product so that it can stand out. So let me tell you this, if you don't invest the time, you don't invest the efforts or the money in publicizing your good products, then you are not going to make the sales that you need. So it is very important that you publicize your good products.
Public relations can be one of the biggest drivers to help jumpstart a business's sales, which is why it is so intrinsic to a company's success. Ivan Zapier, however, explains it doesn't drive sales, click and leads overnight.
PR drives sales indirectly, but does not do the magic as people perceive it. It does so by creating awareness and providing visibility. So I would say if we're running a business all over the world or in this world, and you have the best of products and services, but you need to be known and seen by customers or potential buyers. And how do you do this? You do this with the help of PR. So PR will communicate to or through the media information on your product and services and where customers or potential customers can actually have access to your product and services. In a nutshell, it builds your reputation and then visibility. That aspect you can say PR drives sales, but not directly.
Both advertising and PR help build brands and communicate with target audiences. The most basic difference between them is that advertising space is paid for, while public relations results are earned through providing the media with information in the form of press releases and pitches. While companies and organizations create advertisement to primarily target potential customers, PR professionals hope to cast a wider net. Publics targeted through PR can be internal or external. They can include employees, investors, customers, the media, legislators, and many more. There is also a new category called influencers, which refers to people who have a lot of connections personally like celebrities or politicians, or who have a large following on social media. Joel Sanko, a PR manager at GMA, buttresses the point that PR has more credibility than advertising.
We always hear the debate of PR and advertising, which one is superior, which one is better. And I always say it's a subjective debate. That's true for many, but I'll try to be objective here. We talk about PR, and we talk about PR and advertising, which people will choose, and I'm definitely going to choose PR over advertising. I will choose PR more because of its credibility it comes with. Because when it comes to PR, the messages sent across are relatable, and then people believe in PR messages because mostly they are coming from third parties and not the brand itself. So most people associate third party endorsements as the truth. We live in a society people don't want to hear you blowing your own trumpet. So basically, it lets people understand your message. They get your message because they are coming from third parties and such credibility. You're not putting in that effort. You're not being out there, people seeing you as such, but feeling the messages coming from third parties, people they know, giving recommendations, endorsements, and then word of mouth references. Such things are what people want. Such things are what stakeholders prefer. And that's why I would always go for PR. And also, I'd say PR is also personalized in nature. When it comes to PR, mostly you target specific stakeholders and then audiences. So here is the case where you don't tailor messages for everyone. You don't send across messages for the mass audience, but you tailor messages for your specific target audience. So before you even undertake a campaign or target a person or a group of people, then you undertake stakeholder mapping. You know the various stakeholders you are going to address, and then which messages are suitable for all stakeholders and the avenues or the channels you are going to use to address these stakeholders. Doing it that way makes it effective, makes your messages go to the right people at the right time, and it addresses their needs consistently. So basically, these are the reasons why I would always choose PR over advertising. And then, as I said earlier, this is not just a subjective view, but really an objective view. I know many people would debate over it, but I think there's an objective, close to an objective view for me choosing PR over advertising.
At GMA, one of the things we enjoy the most is meeting awesome, driven people and getting them to tell their honest and sometimes complicated career stories. But that's what career is all about. They are not perfect, and they are certainly not linear, but they are full of heart. With this, let's kickstart this year's World PR Day global celebration with a small sampling of our Team GMA PR unwind after a hard day's work. Whether it's Netflix and chill.
Netflix and chill. My go-to relaxing, exercise is watching some very fine movie, very exciting movies.
Or reading a favorite book.
I read, I write, I play piano, I sing once in a while, and I play with my kids.
As a PR, what I do to relax is to go online and read about different subjects in other areas.
Or pure plain old enjoyment.
I enjoy a lot. As for the enjoyment, I know they give them any gap crash.
The best thing I do is to put on some music and dance in my room when no one is watching.
To cool down myself, I'm someone who really likes sports. I like football especially. I like watching and playing. So normally, if maybe I'm not reading, I'm not doing research on anything, I like to play or to watch football.
These are the moments that motivate us to keep at it. So thank you for coming on this journey with us. Happy World PR Day to all the PR and communication executives and managers in Ghana and around the world. We are GMA.